All right, in order to write a claim paragraph, you need to have already decided what your claim is, and you need to have gathered your evidence. So we put together a graphic organizer. This one looks at a theme in Abuela Invents the Zero, and we've used the theme analysis strategy of looking for what the character learns through the conflict resolution. So I have my theme statement here. An important theme in Abuela Invents the Zero is that you should treat people with dignity and respect, even if you find their actions odd or embarrassing. Because I'm trying to analyze the theme across the text, I've gone from something at the beginning of the text, where the original conflict set up, through the middle towards the climax, and then to the end where the character is resolved and the characters actually, where the conflict is resolved and the characters actually learned something. I've selected several pieces of evidence from each of these areas. If I were really doing a full essay, I could make some topic sentences for a paragraph. And these topic sentences would be mini claims that support my overall claim. But for this, I'm just going to write one paragraph, so I'm going to pick one piece of evidence from each of these categories. I'm going to pick this one. I plan to stay very busy the whole time she's with us. For the first piece of evidence, I'm going to pick this. I'm so embarrassed that even though the woman next to me is shooting daggers at me with her eyes, I just can't move to go get her, as my second piece of evidence. And I'm going to use a couple pieces of evidence from around the climax when Connie figures out that she's really being a jerk, and that she should have treated her grandmother with dignity and respect, as my last pieces of evidence. So now let's begin to write our essay. I've recopied my theme statement at the top of the page, and I've also lined up all of my evidence from my graphic organizer that used to go across the page, and now it's going down the page. My theme statement is: an important theme in Abuela Invents the Zero is that you should treat people with dignity and respect, even if you find their actions odd or embarrassing. Now, my first piece of evidence is I plan to stay very busy the whole time she's with us so that I won't be asked to take her anywhere. I should assume that my reader has read the story, but still, that's a very abrupt transition. So I need to give my reader some background. I need to say, what does my reader need to know to understand where this quote comes from, so it doesn't seem like it's out of the blue. And so what I think you need to know is that Connie is planning from the very beginning that she doesn't plan to spend any time with her grandmother who's visiting. So I'm going to add a sentence in here. When Connie's abuela arrives, Connie thinks she's weird and plans to ignore her from the outset. Because that's a full sentence, and I'm going to add a full sentence quotation, I can put a colon between the two, and those flow together pretty nicely. When Connie's abuela arrives, Connie thinks she's weird and plans to ignore her from the outset. I plan to stay very busy the whole time she's with us, so I won't be asked to take her anywhere. Then, now I need to analyze the quote. I need to explain how that quote supports my theme statement, or in this case, it does that by just kind of setting up the conflict. So I'm going to say, Connie seems to think it's acceptable for her to put her own interests and plans above her visitors. By announcing that she plans to ignore Abuela, Connie shows that she doesn't value her grandmother as a person. And this is trying to show that, you know, she's not going to treat her with dignity and respect because she doesn't value her as a person. That means because I'm heading into a new piece of evidence, I need to have some kind of transition word to show that, and then I also need to get us from where we are with Abuela just visiting to my next piece of evidence, which takes place much later in the church. So I need to sort of summarize for the reader what's happened before then. I'm going to say, however, Connie's plan is foiled when her father demands she take her abuela to Mass. At Mass, her grandmother gets lost coming back to the pew, and Connie does nothing to rescue her. So I've just filled in a little gap about what's going on in the story. Now, my next quote is a full sentence, and I know that I can't just quote plop that quotation into my paragraph. So I'm going to have this dialogue tag first. Connie says, comma, and then I'm going to have the quote from the text that Connie actually said. I'm so embarrassed that even though the woman next to me is shooting daggers at me with her eyes, I just can't move to go get her. Next, I need to analyze it. How does that quotation support my overall claim statement? Okay, I'm going to say I need to talk about Connie's embarrassment and how that's preventing her from treating Abuela nicely. So I'm going to say here, Connie lets her embarrassment get in the way of doing what's right, although she is in a church let me change that to a sacred place. She just can't muster the strength to treat her grandmother because okay, so she's more concerned with her own feelings than what Abuela is feeling. Connie seems to lack the empathy for her grand. Okay, typos aside, get the point. And this is my analysis. There's several sentences of it, and so I'm going to highlight it blue. All right, I'm going into my third piece of evidence now. So again, I need another transition, and then I need to introduce it. I've got several very short pieces here, so I'm going to just put these short phrases into sentences that I write. And rather than having you watch me type, I'm just going to plop them in here. Okay, I'm going to say, finally, another transition. Connie realizes she has been a jerk. After her abuela says, you make me feel like a zero, like a nothing, Connie realizes that the explanation she gave her parents for her behavior in church, quote, sounds lame. Now, you might notice that I do have a quotation here from Abuela, which is in purple. It's not green because I am not using that as evidence of how Connie has changed. This evidence here is from the end, and I'm trying to show that Connie has actually learned a lesson. So what Abuela says doesn't show me what Connie learns, but it is a setup for what Connie learns. So I'm counting that as an introduction here. When she says her explanation sounds lame, even to her own ears, I think I should put that. Although the problem is, it says even to my ears, and I've been talking about her, which is why I left that out. So I'm just going to leave it as sounds lame. That's showing that she recognizes the error of her ways. Okay, Connie's mother gives her a look that Connie says makes me cringe. And then Connie is starting to feel that her own behavior is embarrassing to others. She also says, I can see feel myself shrinking right there in front of her, but I can't bring myself to tell my mother that I think I understand how I made Abuela feel. The very last part is I need to have my final analysis of that quote. And I'm saying that once Connie has heard Abuela's side of the story, she develops some empathy for Abuela as she realizes how self-centered she has been. She becomes ashamed of her behavior and begins to feel like nothing herself. Connie regrets what she's done. And because of that, now I can state in again what her final learning is, and that should reflect my claim because my original theme statement was a statement of what Connie learned. And so I'm saying she realizes that the empathetic response would be to see the situation from the elder's viewpoint and treat her kindly.